Jaden sits quietly in first-class seat 2A, absorbed in a business book that looks far too advanced for a 12-year-old. The young black boy wears a simple gray t-shirt and well-worn jeans, his backpack tucked neatly under the seat in front of him. His calm demeanor and focused reading create a peaceful bubble around him as other passengers board the aircraft. Victoria Sterling steps into the first-class cabin, her Chanel suit immaculate and her Louis Vuitton handbag positioned perfectly on her arm. The 45-year-old woman's eyes immediately land on Jaden, and her expression shifts from neutral to visibly uncomfortable. She checks her boarding pass, seat 2B, then looks back at the boy with unmistakable disdain. "Excuse me, young man," Victoria says, her voice carrying a cold edge that cuts through the cabin's quiet atmosphere. "Are you certain you're sitting in the correct seat?" Jaden looks up from his book, his brow furrowing slightly as he processes the woman's tone. "Yes, ma'am. This is seat 2A, he responds politely, holding up his boarding pass as evidence. Victoria's laugh lacks any warmth. First class isn't exactly the place for children like you, don't you think? Victoria signals for the flight attendant with an imperious wave of her manicured hand. Sarah, a 30-year-old woman with kind eyes and nervous energy, hurries over with a professional smile that doesn't quite mask her growing unease. "Is there something I can help you with, Mrs. Sterling?" Sarah asks, recognizing the frequent flyer whose complaints have become legendary among the crew. Victoria gestures toward Jaden with barely concealed irritation. "This child claims to be sitting in first class. I find that rather unusual, don't you? Perhaps you could verify his ticket and ensure he's in the appropriate section of the aircraft." Sarah glances at Jaden sympathetically before addressing him gently. "Young man, would you mind showing me your boarding pass, please?" Jaden hands over his ticket without hesitation, his movements calm and confident despite the growing tension. Sarah examines the pass carefully, checking it against her passenger manifest on her tablet. "Everything appears to be in order," Sarah announces, returning the boarding pass to Jaden. "He's definitely assigned to seat 2A, and his ticket is completely valid." Victoria's face flushes with indignation. "That's impossible. How could a child dressed like that possibly afford a $3,000 first-class ticket? There must be some mistake, or worse, some kind of fraud involved." "Ma'am, I assure you that his ticket is legitimate," Sarah explains patiently, though her voice carries a slight tremor. "All passengers go through thorough verification before boarding." Victoria's voice rises as she studies Jaden with obvious suspicion. "I simply cannot believe that a poor black child like this has the means to purchase first-class accommodations. Someone in his family must have used questionable methods to obtain this ticket." Jaden grips his book tighter, his jaw tensing slightly as he fights to maintain his composure. "I'm not poor, and my family didn't do anything wrong. I have every right to sit here." Victoria laughs bitterly. "Rights? Do you have any idea who I am, young man? I've been a VIP customer with this airline for 15 years. I shouldn't have to sit next to people like you." Other passengers begin to take notice of the commotion, some watching with sympathetic expressions toward Jaden, while others appear uncertain about what to believe. The tension in the cabin grows thicker as Victoria's voice carries to nearby seats. Victoria's persistence escalates as she demands further investigation. "I insist you double-check this boy's ticket. Something about this situation feels completely wrong to me. Perhaps it's a counterfeit boarding pass." Jaden takes a deep breath, and memories flash through his mind like scenes from a movie he wishes he could forget. He remembers his father's patient words during their last conversation about handling difficult situations with dignity. He recalls the countless times at school when classmates questioned whether he belonged in advanced classes, the subtle looks of doubt from teachers, the way some parents pulled their children away at birthday parties. His father had taught him to face these challenges with grace, to never let anyone make him feel ashamed of who he was. "I haven't done anything wrong," Jaden says quietly, his voice carrying just a hint of the frustration building inside him. Sarah feels increasingly uncomfortable as the situation develops. "Mrs. Sterling, as I mentioned, I've already verified his ticket thoroughly. Everything is completely legitimate." Victoria's tone becomes threatening as she leans closer to the flight attendant. Do you realize that I'm personally acquainted with the CEO of this airline? One phone call from me could end your career faster than you can imagine. Sarah swallows hard, her face paling at the implied threat. Mrs. Sterling, I understand your concerns, but I don't care whether his ticket appears valid or not, Victoria interrupts, her voice growing louder. A child like this simply doesn't belong in first class. His family obviously used some kind of underhanded scheme to get him here. Jaden feels his anger beginning to surface, his usual calm demeanor cracking slightly. You can't talk about my family like that. You don't know anything about us. An elderly gentleman seated nearby finally speaks up, his voice firm but controlled. Ma'am, you're being unreasonable. The boy has a valid ticket and has been nothing but polite. Victoria whirls around to face the man. Sir, I suggest you mind your own business. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I won't be lectured by strangers. The atmosphere in first class becomes increasingly tense as more passengers become aware of the conflict. Some appear sympathetic to Jaden, while others seem uncomfortable with the entire situation. Sarah stands frozen between her duty to maintain peace and her instinct to protect a young passenger from obvious discrimination. Suddenly, Victoria's demeanor shifts to one of panic and outrage. Oh my God, where is my wallet? She exclaims, frantically searching through her expensive handbag. She dumps the contents of her purse onto her seat, her movements becoming more frantic with each passing second. My Louis Vuitton wallet is missing. It had $5,000 in cash inside, plus all my credit cards. Every eye in the first-class cabin turns toward the unfolding drama. Victoria's face contorts with a mixture of fear and fury as she processes what she believes has happened. It was him, Victoria shouts, pointing an accusatory finger directly at Jaden. Ever since this boy got on the plane, I've felt uneasy about him. He must have taken it when I wasn't looking. Jaden stares at her in complete shock, his mouth falling open at the accusation. I didn't take anything from you. I haven't even left my seat. Of course you're going to deny it, Victoria screams, her voice echoing through the cabin. A child from the ghetto like you, stealing is probably second nature. You saw an opportunity and took it. Sarah steps forward, her hands shaking slightly. Mrs. Sterling, we cannot make accusations without evidence. Perhaps we should search the area around your seat first. Evidence? Victoria's laugh is harsh and cruel. He was sitting right next to me. Who else could have taken it? I demand that you search him immediately. Jaden stands up, his face flushed with a combination of embarrassment and righteous anger. I am not a thief. You have no right to accuse me of something I didn't do. I have every right, Victoria retorts. I'm the victim here. Security. Someone call security immediately. The passengers around them begin to murmur among themselves, their voices creating a low buzz of speculation and judgment. Maybe she's right about the boy. He does look out of place here. I feel sorry for him, but you never know. She seems pretty certain. Jaden feels the weight of their stares and whispered doubts crushing down on him. His eyes begin to water, but he fights desperately to maintain his dignity. I didn't steal anything. Why won't anyone believe me? Victoria continues her relentless attack. Because children like you don't belong in places like this. You've obviously hidden the wallet somewhere, hoping to retrieve it later. Search his bag, check under his seat, strip search him if necessary. The humiliation burns through Jaden like fire, but he refuses to break down completely. He stands straighter, meeting Victoria's hateful gaze with as much courage as he can muster, even as his world seems to crumble around him. Aircraft security personnel arrive at the first-class cabin, their presence immediately drawing the attention of every passenger. Victoria sees their arrival as validation and launches into her accusations with renewed vigor. Finally, thank goodness you're here, Victoria exclaims dramatically. I've been robbed. This boy stole my wallet containing $8,000. $5,000 in cash plus credit cards worth thousands more. The lead security officer, a stern-faced man in his 40s, looks between Victoria and Jaden with professional skepticism. Ma'am, can you walk us through exactly what happened? I was sitting peacefully in my assigned seat when I noticed this. child. In first class, Victoria begins, her voice dripping with disdain. I immediately felt suspicious because someone like him clearly doesn't belong here. Now my expensive wallet is missing, and he's the only one who could have taken it. Jaden shakes his head vigorously. That's not true. I never touched her things. I've been reading my book this whole time. The security officer addresses Jaden directly. Son, would you be willing to cooperate with the search of your belongings? I don't want to be searched, Jaden protests, his voice cracking with emotion. I didn't do anything wrong. Why does everyone automatically believe her instead of me? Victoria senses an opportunity and presses her advantage. See? He's already being defensive and uncooperative. That's exactly what a guilty person would do. She turns to the growing crowd of onlookers, playing to them like an actress on stage. I'm just a hard-working businesswoman trying to get home after a difficult trip. I never expected to be victimized by a young criminal on what should have been a peaceful flight. Check the bathrooms. Check the seat pockets. Search him thoroughly, Victoria demands, her voice reaching a fevered pitch. He's obviously disposed of the evidence somewhere. Sarah attempts to interject with a voice of reason. Perhaps we should consider other possibilities. You've been protecting him from the beginning, Victoria snaps at the flight attendant. I'm going to report your unprofessional behavior to management. You're probably in on this somehow. Jaden looks around desperately, seeing doubt and suspicion in the eyes of passengers who moments before had seemed sympathetic. The walls feel like they're closing in as Victoria's accusations grow more elaborate and convincing. Ladies and gentlemen, Jaden says, his young voice trying to project strength. I swear on my family's honor that I didn't take anything. My family has money. I don't need to steal from anyone. Victoria scoffs loudly. Your family has money? Now you're just lying to make yourself look better. Look at how you're dressed. Look at where you come from. The aircraft's captain announces over the intercom that the flight will be delayed by 10 minutes to resolve the security situation. Victoria claps her hands together in satisfaction. Perfect. I want this little thief arrested right here, right now, she declares triumphantly. The security officers begin discussing protocols for searching a minor passenger, while Jaden stands in the center of the chaos, feeling more alone and helpless than he ever has in his young life. The injustice of the situation burns in his chest, but he has no way to prove his innocence. That's enough. Jaden finally explodes, his composure cracking under the relentless pressure. I am not a thief. I don't care what you think about me, but I won't let you destroy my family's reputation with your lies. Oh, now we see his true colors, Victoria exclaims with mock triumph. When cornered, these types always resort to aggression. This just proves everything I've been saying. At that exact moment, the distinct chime of the VIP boarding announcement echoes through the first-class cabin. The main door opens, and James Williams steps aboard, a distinguished black man in his 50s wearing a simple but well-tailored business suit. His presence immediately commands attention, though his appearance remains understated and modest. Jaden's face lights up with pure relief and joy. "Daddy," he calls out, his voice breaking with emotion. The entire first-class cabin falls into stunned silence. James Williams surveys the chaotic scene before him with the calm assessment of someone accustomed to handling crises. His dark eyes move methodically from his distressed son to the agitated woman pointing accusatory fingers, taking in every detail of the confrontation. What exactly is happening here? James asks, his voice carrying a quiet authority that immediately draws everyone's attention. Victoria, still unaware of who she's addressing, continues her aggressive stance. And who are you supposed to be? This is a private matter that doesn't concern you. Jaden rushes to his father's side, his relief palpable. Dad, this woman is accusing me of stealing her wallet. I didn't do anything wrong, I promise. James places a protective hand on his son's shoulder, his gaze never leaving Victoria's face. I believe you, son. I know exactly who you are. Victoria laughs dismissively. Oh, wonderful. Now we have two of them to deal with. Are you his accomplice in this theft? At that moment, Captain Frank Rodriguez appears from the cockpit, having been summoned by his crew about the security situation. When he sees James, his face goes completely white. "Mr. Williams." "Sir, what are you doing in the passenger cabin?" the captain asks, his voice filled with confusion and growing concern. James nods at the captain. "Hello, Frank. I came aboard to pick up my son for our trip home. However, it appears there's been some kind of misunderstanding." Captain Rodriguez turns slowly toward Victoria, his expression shifting from confusion to horror. "Mrs. Sterling, do you have any idea who you've been speaking to?" Victoria remains defiant, though a flicker of uncertainty crosses her features. "I don't care who he claims to be. I just want my property returned and this thief arrested." "This is James Williams," the captain announces, his voice barely above a whisper. "The chief executive officer of Williams Aviation Holdings, the parent company that owns this airline." The words hang in the air like a bomb that hasn't yet exploded. Victoria's face drains of all color as the implications hit her with devastating force. James looks at Victoria with ice-cold eyes. "So you've been accusing my son of being a thief?" I had no idea," Victoria stammers, her earlier confidence evaporating completely. "My son was traveling with me on business," James continues in measured tones. "He could purchase this entire aircraft if he chose to. But more importantly, he was raised to understand honor, integrity, and respect for others." Sarah, the flight attendant who had tried to protect Jaden, finally finds her voice. "Mr. Williams, Jaden has been completely respectful throughout this entire ordeal. Mrs. Sterling was the one who—" James raises his hand gently. "Thank you, Sarah. I understand exactly what happened here. I appreciate you standing up for my son." Victoria desperately attempts to salvage the situation. "Mr. Williams, please. I sincerely apologize. I had no way of knowing. I really did lose my wallet." James doesn't acknowledge her pleas, instead turning his full attention to Jaden. "Are you okay, son?" Jaden nods, though his eyes still show the pain of what he's endured. "I'm okay, Dad. I just don't understand why she automatically assumed I was a criminal." The elderly gentleman who had defended Jaden earlier speaks up. "Your son handled himself with remarkable dignity, Mr. Williams. You should be very proud." James smiles at Jaden for the first time since boarding. "I am extremely proud. He demonstrated more character in the last 30 minutes than most adults show in a lifetime." The dramatic reversal is now complete. Victoria, who moments before had been the accusing authority figure, now stands exposed as the one whose prejudices and assumptions have crumbled in the face of reality. James finally turns his attention back to Victoria, his expression cold and unforgiving. "Mrs. Sterling, you didn't just insult my son today. You used racist language and made assumptions based solely on his appearance while aboard an aircraft owned by my company." Victoria's hands shake as she tries to respond. "Please, Mr. Williams, I was confused." "You called my son a child from the ghetto, suggested he was a type who steals naturally, and demanded he be strip-searched based on nothing but your prejudices." James recounts each offense with prosecutorial precision. "Every word has been recorded by our security cameras." Captain Rodriguez adds his voice to the proceedings. "Mr. Williams, we can review the footage immediately if you'd like to see the full incident." "That won't be necessary," James replies. "I heard enough from the boarding bridge. Mrs. Sterling, effective immediately, you are permanently banned from flying on any Williams Aviation aircraft or any of our partner airlines." Victoria collapses into her seat as if her legs can no longer support her. "You can't do this. My career depends on air travel. I have clients across the country." "You should have considered those consequences before publicly humiliating a 12-year-old child." James responds without a trace of sympathy in his voice. Sarah suddenly calls out from near Victoria's seat. "Mrs. Sterling, I found your wallet." Every head in the cabin turns toward the flight attendant, who holds up a Louis Vuitton wallet. "It was wedged down between your seat cushions. You must have accidentally dropped it there yourself." Victoria's face turns crimson as the final piece of her accusation crumbles. The wallet she had accused Jaden of stealing had been in her own possession the entire time, simply misplaced through her own carelessness. James looks at her with undisguised contempt. So you falsely accused my son of theft based on your own negligence. The other passengers begin to murmur among themselves, their comments now clearly condemning Victoria's behavior. How embarrassing for her. That poor boy. She owes him a huge apology. I can't believe she said those things. Victoria makes one final, desperate attempt at redemption. I'm truly sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Surely we can work something out. A mistake? James's voice rises slightly for the first time. You think assuming my son is a criminal because of his race was just a mistake? You think teaching him that the world will judge him by his skin color rather than his character is just an error in judgment? Security, James calls to the officers who have been watching the scene unfold. Please escort Mrs. Sterling off this aircraft. She'll need to make alternative travel arrangements. Victoria breaks down completely, tears streaming down her face. This will ruin everything. Please, I beg you. You ruined everything the moment you decided to treat my son as less than human. James responds with finality. Actions have consequences, Mrs. Sterling. Today you're learning that lesson. As security personnel escort the crying woman from the aircraft, the first-class cabin watches in stunned silence. Justice has been served, but the cost of the lesson weighs heavily on everyone present. After Victoria's removal from the aircraft, James settles into the seat beside Jaden. The first-class cabin gradually returns to its normal, quiet atmosphere, though the weight of what just occurred still hangs in the air. Are you really okay, son? James asks gently, placing his arm around Jaden's shoulders. Jaden nods slowly, though his eyes still show traces of the hurt he's experienced. I'm fine, Dad, but I don't understand why she immediately thought I was a thief just because of how I look. James takes a moment to consider his words carefully. Jaden, that wasn't about you at all. Some people carry prejudices in their hearts that blind them to the truth. Mrs. Sterling saw your skin color and made assumptions instead of seeing your character. Sarah approaches their seats hesitantly. Mr. Williams, I want to apologize for not being able to stop this situation sooner. I tried to defend Jaden, but... Sarah, you did exactly what you should have done. James reassures her. You didn't let bias influence your judgment, and you stood up for what was right even when it was difficult. Jaden looks up at his father with questioning eyes. Dad, why do I have to go through things like this? Why can't people just treat everyone fairly? James considers the question with the gravity it deserves. Son, the world still has a long way to go before everyone is treated equally. But what matters most is how you respond to these challenges. Today you maintained your dignity and didn't let anger turn you into something you're not. You proved who you truly are. Remember, James continues, real power doesn't come from shouting at people or threatening them. True strength comes from knowing when to stay silent and when to speak up for justice. The elderly gentleman who had supported Jaden earlier leans over from his seat. Young man, you handled yourself with more grace than most adults could have managed. Your father has every reason to be proud. Jaden smiles genuinely for the first time since the ordeal began. Thank you, sir. That means a lot. James addresses the other passengers within earshot. I hope today's events remind all of us about the importance of not judging people by their appearance or making assumptions based on stereotypes. A middle-aged woman across the aisle nods emphatically. Your son is a credit to you, Mr. Williams. The way he stayed calm through all of that was remarkable. He learned that from watching his mother, James says with pride. She taught him that dignity is something no one can take away from you unless you give it up willingly. Jaden picks up his business book again, but pauses before opening it. Dad, I want to learn everything I can so that someday I can help change things for other kids who go through this. James's eyes shine with paternal pride. That's exactly the right attitude, son. Education and character are the tools that will help you build a better world. As the aircraft reaches cruising altitude, Jaden and James sit comfortably together, looking out at the clouds below. The turbulence of the earlier conflict has given way to smooth skies and peaceful conversation. Dad, what should I do if something like this happens again when you're not there? Jaden asks thoughtfully. James smiles with a hint of mischief in his eyes. Remember, son, your worth isn't determined by what other people think of you. You're valuable not because of money or power, but because of who you are as a person. And sometimes, James adds with a knowing wink, letting people reveal their true character before you reveal yours can be quite educational. Jaden grins, understanding his father's wisdom. I think I'm beginning to see what you mean, Dad. The airplane continues its journey through the sky, carrying with it a lesson about justice, dignity, and the power of staying true to oneself in the face of adversity.